these so-called disciples that was with Jesus couldn't even crack the codes. Jesus used to speak to them in parables because they were dumb. That's why he spoke to them in parables. And the parables didn't even understand. They didn't even understand the parables. It was so crazy because a simple parable that Jesus told, right, is when he says, what goes into the man doesn't defile the man, but it's what comes out of the man's mouth that defiles the man. What goes into the man's mouth, he said, don't you know that what goes into the man's mouth does not defile the man, but it's what comes out of the man's mouth that defiles the man? And they didn't understand it. Jesus said, okay, whatever you eat, whatever you're drinking, that is not going to defile you. That's not going to make you a bad person, an evil person, just because of what you eat or what you drink, what you wear. But what Jesus said is what comes out of your mouth, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So whatever comes out of your heart that's what makes you bad and evil, not what you're wearing. So Jesus is like, wait, y'all really couldn't crack that code? That was an easy parable. Y'all could have at least cracked that one. Oh, ye of little faith, no understanding. Oh my God, seek wisdom. These men didn't even understand a lot of the stuff that Jesus was saying. But how they can write a whole fucking New Testament, and these men couldn't even understand what Jesus was trying to tell them in codes. Come on now. But Jesus was real. Jesus was real. Like, that was some real stuff that Jesus said. Jesus said, you drinking something, you putting on certain clothes, it's not going to make you holy. That's not giving you a pass into the kingdom of heaven just because you drinking, pure water. Just because you don't drink alcohol, just because you wear, like, you don't need comfy clothes, decent clothes. Jesus is like, we're not worrying about none of that. Jesus is like, the only thing I'm weighing is your heart. It's only your heart. It's what comes out of your heart. Only your heart will be weighed. I'm trying to tell you, only your heart will be weighed. Jesus is not concerned about all the other stuff at all. That's what man is concerned about. Even Jesus said, you guys are so quick to follow and honor man's tradition over God's commandment. It's like you uphold man's tradition, but you reject God's commandment. Okay? You are still lying, you're still cheating, you're still not loving your neighbor as you love yourself, but you are over here as a as an Israelite, or as a Muslim, or as a Christian, or as a Jew. You know what I mean? And Jesus is like, it's not about you being a Jew, a Muslim, or none of that stuff. Jesus is like, I didn't come to save just because you're I didn't come to save just these people just because they are religion. No, Jesus was like, all strangers and all. Okay, because it's only the heart. Jesus only cares about your heart. Only. So all the other stuff about eating pork, y'all better get rid of that one, because that's what man said. That's not what Jesus said. For my Jesus followers. This is for my Jesus followers. This is not for the people who don't believe in Jesus. I'm talking about Jesus. Y'all read the New Testament where Jesus, in red writing, this is what Jesus said. At least that's what the disciples got right. What they got right is what Jesus said. Everything else that they come up with their own understanding, when it says, even though Jesus said, lean not unto your own understanding, the Bible says, lean not unto your own understanding. So these disciples leaned on their own understanding and came up with these manly rules about washing up the hands, and about the fringes, and about the crosses, and about this attire. That's what man came up with. And that's what Jesus said. You guys are honoring that more than you're honoring the real heart. The heart. You're not honoring God. You're worshiping God with your lips, but your heart is far from God. Because God said your heart is not even with me. You're just saying Jesus, but your heart, the real works. Only those who does the will of my Father is my brother or my sister. Only those who do God's word, God's will, is considered one of Christ. That's it, y'all. Be very careful out here, because this is the blind leading the blind, the dull leading the dull. Y'all be careful out here. I'm telling y'all, wolves in sheep's clothing. These people are false prophets. Not because they look like a pope means they're a pope. Not because they look like a Christian means they're Christian. Not because they look Muslim means they're Muslim. Not because they look like they're a Jew means that they are a Jew. Beware of these false prophets. You're being led down a ditch. These people are trying to convince you that they are holy by their attire, through their wardrobe. That's how they're trying to convince you that they are holy, by having a diploma. Okay, they have a theology diploma. They're trying to convince you that they're holy by wearing these all white, by wearing these long fringes. They're trying to convince you with all these long beard. They're trying to convince you because they don't eat pork. They are trying to convince you that they're holy, but these people are not holy. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. They're trying to convince you through their attire, that they are holy, but trust and believe they are not holy. Okay, they're trying to convince you. They're trying to put on the acts. They're putting on the act. They're putting on the wolves' clothing. I mean, the sheep's clothing. Okay, over their ravenous wolf heart. Their heart is wolves. Okay, these people are ravenous wolves on the inside, but they're putting on the attire of a godly person. But don't trust the book by its cover. Don't judge the book by its cover. Don't trust the book exactly by its cover. Don't, because the cover looks good, don't mean that you should trust that book. You got to trust, and you have to judge the content, what's within the book, what's in the person's heart. Judge the person's heart. Judge what's within their heart, not their outwardly appearance, because that's how you get tricked and fooled. Y'all over here trusting a pope as a Catholic. You believe that? But that pope was indoctrinated through a satanic ritual. The Vatican, under the Vatican, okay? That pope was indoctrinated, and under the Vatican, the satanic powers is operating through the pope. But y'all over there kissing the pope's feet and worshiping a pope, even the pastor too. That pastor was indoctrinated through the Vatican. The satanic people them is who indoctrinated and taught all your pastors that have a theology degree. Yes, they were indoctrinated by the Pope by the Vatican. The Vatican who owns this entire religion is who the Vatican is running. Okay, so y'all over here trusting these pastors just because they have a license, just because they have this certificate which was given by the satanic Vatican people, Catholic rulers, them elites, them. Keep on going. You're going down the wrong path. You're getting led down the wrong way. Trust and believe. I don't care about none of that religious stuff. I don't care about none of that physical, trying to put on acts with your religious self, with your attire, with your speech, with your degree, with your theology. I'm not impressed by none of that. Only your heart. How good of a person are you in your heart? How good of a person are you? What is your character giving? Yes, we need to know your character. I don't need to know how much degrees theology you have. I don't need to know none of that. Okay? How good of a person are you within your heart?